Who are you?
They say a man's life splits in two, the day before it changes him, and the day after. For Clay Vanner, that line was drawn under a pale sun on the ride from Del Rio. 34, quiet, dust in his lungs, too many graves behind him. Clay came for a horse. Nothing more. The land looked worn, grass brittle, sky stretched thin. The Rusk place felt wrong before a word was spoken. The house crouched low, shutters hanging, windows dulled with years of regret. A dog barked once, then stopped. Even the wind seemed careful. A thick-set man stepped out, face red, shirt clinging with sweat. "You Vanner?" "I am." "You're here for the sorrel. She's in the barn. Go take a look. I'll fetch the papers." And Clay nodded. The man's smile was slick, like oil on water. Still, a deal was a deal. He led his mare to the barn. Every step sounded too loud. When he pushed the door open, the smell of hay and rust rolled out, and something sharper made his stomach turn. Light cut through roof cracks, striping dust like pale ropes. The sorrel stood calm in the far stall, but Clay's eyes caught a darker shape. A woman. She lay on her side, wrists shackled to a bolt, dress torn, skin marked by rough handling. Not fresh wounds, old ones, heavy with neglect. Her breath shallow, gaze steady but hollow, as if waiting for the world to remember her. Clay knelt. "You hurt bad?" She blinked slow. Behind him, the boards creaked. The red-faced man filled the doorway, sunlight framing him like judgment. "She don't talk," he said. "Found her near my land, half wild, mean as a rattler. Had to chain her till she settled." Clay's jaw locked, face still. "You want her too? I got papers." He moved first, one step, one swing. The man hit dirt, groaning. Clay didn't look back. He turned to the woman. "I'm getting you out," he said, quiet as a prayer. She flinched at his knife but didn't pull away. The chain fought him, stubborn as the place, then gave with a sigh. She weighed near nothing. Dust rose like ghosts as he carried her past the fallen man, past the sorrel, past the house that had forgotten mercy. Outside, sunlight hit her face. She winced, eyes watering. Clay set her on the horse, climbed behind her, and turned to the open plain. He didn't look back. Neither did she. They rode till the sun sank red, the barn shrinking to a dot, a place that would never see them again. That was Clay Vanner's line, before the barn and after. But saving her was only the first step. The real fight, the one neither saw, coming, waited in the dust. Keep your hand steady. The trail grows darker from here, so if you want to ride with them a little farther, hit subscribe and keep your hand steady on the reins. The night came quick, swallowing the plain in black velvet. Clay kept the mare steady, her hooves soft against the earth. The woman leaned against him, her body small, brittle, but alive. That was enough for now. "Name?" he asked, voice low, almost lost to the wind. She didn't answer at first. Her head rested against his shoulder, eyes closed, tracing the scars of the day in silence. Finally a whisper came. "Lila!" Clay nodded once. "You rest. Don't worry about talking yet." They found a shallow draw, set the mare to graze, and built a small fire from brittle sticks. Sparks rose like little ghosts, dancing in the night air. Clay watched her, felt the tension slowly uncoil. The world had chewed her up, but she hadn't broken all the way. Not yet. Morning came pale and uncertain. Lila was awake before the sun, staring out at the land that didn't care who lived or died on it. Clay saddled the mare, and they moved on. Silence stretched between them like taut rope. By noon, the distant line of smoke told Clay they weren't the only ones moving out here. Bandits? Ranchers? No telling. He gripped the reins tighter, eyes scanning every ridge, every shadow. Lila stayed quiet behind him, watching, listening. She was learning. Then the first shot cracked the air. Sharp, unforgiving. Clay dove low, dragging Lila behind the mare's neck as a second round whistled past. The plains erupted in chaos. Dust, gunfire, the sound of a world that hadn't yet forgiven either of them. "Hold on!" Clay shouted, kicking the sorrel into a gallop. Lila clung to him, face pressed to his back, heart pounding against his shoulder. Bullets bit the earth around them, spraying dirt like sparks from a forge. They rode hard through a narrow canyon, walls rising like stone sentinels. Clay counted on the terrain, on the mare, on every muscle that had learned to survive the same way he had. The gunfire faded behind them, leaving only wind and heavy breaths. When they finally slowed, Clay let out a long, steadying breath. Lila collapsed against him, shaking, and he realized she'd survived the barn. She'd survived the plains. But survival alone didn't mean safety. He looked down at her, dust coating her hair like frost. "This ain't over," he said. And it wasn't. The road ahead would be long, cruel, and relentless. But for the first time since the barn, they had a chance to fight back, to carve out something human in a land that had forgotten the word. Clay tightened his grip on the reins. Lila's hand found his. Together they rode into the horizon, the sun at their backs, the dust in their eyes, and the promise of storms waiting somewhere ahead. Because the thing that changed him wasn't just saving her. It was knowing the world could still be stopped if you had the courage to stand in its path. But storms don't wait for you to be ready. Somewhere out there, the first reckoning is already coming for them. Hold tight. The plains have a way of testing every bone in your body. Bullets tore through the morning like angry hornets. Clay had never felt the plains hum so alive with danger, each ridge and ravine holding a shadow that could kill. The sorrel surged forward, hooves drumming like war drums. Behind him, Lila clung tight, eyes wide but steady now, learning fast. "They're close!" Clay shouted over the wind. His voice was calm, precise, no room for panic. Every instinct in him screamed to keep moving. Smoke curled from a distant bluff, the tell of men on horseback. Outlaws, no doubt. They weren't just chasing, they were hunting. Clay's jaw clenched. He had saved Lila once, but the world didn't give second chances freely. He veered into a dry wash, the walls tight, the path treacherous. The first rider appeared over the ridge, gun raised, face hidden under a wide hat. Clay ducked, kicking the mare into a sharper gallop. Shots spat sparks from the canyon walls, and Lila pressed herself to his back, silent but unflinching. Clay's mind raced. Every escape, every trick of the plains he'd learned running for his own life. And now it was for both of them. They zigzagged, ducked, and doubled back. The riders swore, cursed, and then slowed. Clay glanced behind. They hadn't lost them yet. Hours passed. Dust settled on burned-out tracks, and the sun leaned toward dusk. Clay pulled the mare to a cautious halt near a line of mesquite. Lila slid from behind him, knees weak but eyes sharp. She touched the mare, whispered something quiet, and the small gesture made Clay realize how far they'd already come. But freedom wasn't a single moment. It was a path paved in vigilance. Clay's eyes swept the horizon. The plains might have let them breathe, but the storm behind them would not forget. He breathed deep, feeling the weight of survival pressing down like a lead sky. "We're not done," he said, voice low. Lila nodded. Together they mounted again, shadows stretching long across the dust. The sun set red, burning away the edges of the day, and the world felt both beautiful and deadly. Clay Vanner knew one truth above all. The plains never forgave the weak, and mercy was a luxury neither of them could afford. The hunters are patient. The plains are patient. and soon both will come for them again. Keep your hands on the reins. The next ride will test everything you've survived so far. Night fell like a blade across the plains. Clay could feel it in his bones. The dark carried more than shadows. Every crunch of rock under the sorrel's hooves, every rustle of grass, could be an enemy waiting to strike. Lila stayed close behind him, alert, silent, her small hand gripping his arm like a lifeline. "They're getting clever," Clay muttered, voice low. "They know we're alive." Smoke curled from the valley ahead. Not random fire. Campfires. Neat and deliberate. They'd made camp. Hunters were waiting. Clay's jaw tightened. He slid from the saddle, lowering himself and Lila behind a mesquite. "Stay quiet," he whispered. She nodded, the way a cornered animal does when it senses it must trust or die. Clay counted the figures. 5 men, rifles leaning casually against saddles, faces lit by firelight. Too calm, too confident. That was their mistake. He'd fought worse, and tonight he wouldn't run. 1 step, 2 steps. The sorrel huffed quietly nearby, muscles coiled. Clay's hand brushed Lila's shoulder. "On my mark," he said. Her eyes met his. No fear, only focus. They struck like shadows. Clay moved first, quick and silent, taking down the nearest man before a shout could rise. Lila followed, surprising even him, her small frame moving like a ghost, knocking another hunter off balance. Chaos erupted. Bullets spat sparks. Men screamed, horses whinnied, dust choked the air, and by the time the fight ended, the hunters lay scattered, retreating into the night, leaving Clay and Lila breathing hard, hearts pounding. She slumped against him, sweat and dust streaking her face, and for a long moment, neither spoke. Clay wiped a line of grime from her cheek. "This isn't over," he said softly. "They'll come back. Always do." Lila nodded, finally letting the tension slip. Just a little. The fire died to embers. The plains stretched endless around them, dark and unforgiving. Clay felt the weight of it all, the barn, the chase, the fight, and knew the road ahead would test every ounce of their strength. But tonight, they had survived. Tonight, they were a step ahead. But the night is patient, and so are their enemies. The plains have a long memory, and the next shadow will be closer than they think. Keep your eyes sharp. The hunt is far from over. The wind bit hard that morning, carrying grit into every corner of Clay's eyes. The plains were quiet, too quiet. Clay's hand never left the reins, never far from the gun at his hip. Lila rode behind him, shoulders tense, eyes scanning the horizon like it held secrets. Because it did. "You ever tell me why they wanted you?" Clay asked, voice low, careful. Lila didn't answer right away. Her fingers tightened on his arm, knuckles white. Then finally a whisper came. "Family? Debts? Secrets?" Clay's heart tightened. He had fought the world for survival, but this was deeper. Blood deep, history deep, tied to someone else's cruelty. They rode toward a ridge where the wind tore at their faces. From above, the plains stretched in waves of dust and heat, and from below, movement. They weren't alone. Shadows flitted between rocks, men on horseback, silent until the moment they struck. Clay kicked the sorrel into a gallop. Lila pressed close, leaning into him, and for a heartbeat, they were one with the horse, one with the chase. Gunfire rang. Bullets spat earth like molten sparks. He moved with practiced precision, taking cover, returning fire, keeping Lila alive. Then one figure broke from the shadows. A man on a black horse, tall, lean, face set like iron. Clay recognized the calm, practiced violence in the way he rode. Lila froze for a split second, and Clay caught the look in her eyes. Recognition, fear, history. "Clay," she whispered, almost lost to the wind. The rider raised his hand, slow, deliberate. Clay felt the pulse of danger sharpen. This was no random hunter. This was someone who knew her, someone who had sent the world after her before. He gritted his teeth. "Hold tight," he said. "This is the real test." The sorrel surged up the ridge, hooves kicking up clouds of dust, heart pounding like the drum of war. Clay's grip never faltered. Lila's small hands clutching him like survival itself depended on it, which it did. The wind carried voices, whispers of old debts, old grudges, and the promise that the hunt was only beginning. Because some enemies don't just hunt, they wait. They know the roads, the plains, and the secrets you carry. And the next ride, well, it's coming faster than you think. Keep your hands on the reins. The past is riding with them. The night was black enough to swallow a man whole. Clay could hear the sorrel's hooves striking the hard earth, feel the tension in every muscle as he rode with Lila pressed tight behind him. The wind carried the faint metallic scent of blood and dust, a reminder that death had already walked this path, and might be walking it again. "Clay, they're still behind us," Lila whispered, voice sharp but steady. "I know," he said. His eyes scanned every shadow, every dip in the plains. "And they're not just chasing, they're hunting." From the ridge above, a volley of gunfire cracked, sending sparks into the night. Clay ducked low, the sorrel weaving between rocks and loose soil. Lila clung to him, knuckles white, but silent now, eyes wide and alert. Survival demanded focus. Fear had no place here. A rider broke from the darkness. Black hat, black horse, face hidden. The man moved like a predator, cutting off their path. Clay kicked the sorrel into a sharp curve, spinning past the ambush, bullets whistling close enough to sing past his ear. They dove into a narrow canyon, the walls rising like stone jaws. Clay knew these rocks. He knew every contour the plains had carved. But tonight, knowledge alone wasn't enough. The enemy knew him too, knew how he thought, how he moved. The canyon erupted into chaos. Horses reared, shots rang off stone, and dust climbed like smoke from a furnace. Clay felt Lila tense behind him, small but unyielding, and realized how far she'd come, how much of herself she had regained since the barn. Then a shadow fell ahead, a fallen tree, jagged and dark. Clay forced the sorrel to the side, scraping along the rough bark. His shoulder hit the tree, pain seared, but he ignored it. One step, one shot, one breath at a time. Survival didn't wait for injuries. The rider on black appeared again, this time closer, gun leveled. Clay met the shot, returning fire, and for a second, time slowed. Their world reduced to dust, sparks, and the raw thrum of adrenaline. Lila's voice cut through the chaos. "Clay, left," she pointed, instinct sharp as steel. Clay turned, barely avoiding another rider barreling toward them. She was no longer the scared girl from the barn. She was fast, precise, alive. Together they fought the night, two against the shadows that had chased them from dawn. When the firing ceased, the plains lay quiet again, thick with smoke and dust. The enemy had retreated, but Clay knew it wasn't over. Not even close. The night had tested them, almost, broken them, and yet here they were, breathing, battered, but undefeated. He looked at Lila, her face streaked with sweat and dirt, eyes fierce in the firelight. "We're still here," he said, "but this road, it's only getting darker. The hunters will return, and the plains remember every wrong, every debt unpaid. Keep your eyes open, hands steady. The next ride will demand everything they've got, and maybe more." The plains had a way of whispering secrets, and tonight, every sound carried a warning. Clay's eyes never rested. The sorrel moved like a shadow, muscles coiled and ready. Lila rode close, silent, her face streaked with grime but eyes sharp, scanning for danger. "They're close again," she whispered. "I can feel it." Clay didn't reply. He had learned long ago that some words only slowed you down. The world was patient, and so were their enemies. He rode in silence, letting the wind and the distant stars guide him. Ahead, a flicker of firelight glimmered between two ridges. Not campfires, torches. Someone was waiting. Clay's gut twisted. This wasn't a chase anymore. It was a trap. He slowed the sorrel slightly, letting them drop into a shallow draw. Shadows moved along the ridge above. Figures tall and lean, rifles ready. One of them stepped forward, and Lila gasped. Recognition flared in her eyes. "Clay! It's him!" she breathed. The man from her past. The one who had started this nightmare, now standing with a smug confidence that made Clay's teeth grit. "No talking," Clay muttered, hand on his gun. "We survive first. Questions later." The riders above surged forward. Clay kicked the sorrel into a run, weaving through the canyon's jagged rocks. Shots cracked like lightning, bullets spitting dirt and sparks. Lila held tight. No longer the frightened girl from the barn. She was fierce, alive, moving instinctively, helping Clay, dodging, guiding him through the chaos. One of the men lunged down a narrow path. Clay spun the sorrel sharply, catching the rider off balance. The man tumbled, cursed, disappeared into the dust. Another figure emerged, gun raised. Clay fired, and the sound of steel meeting earth echoed against the canyon walls. For a long, desperate moment, it felt like the plains themselves had paused. Wind, dust, firelight, and blood all frozen in time. And then the hunt resumed. When the dust settled, Clay and Lila were still mounted, breathing hard, eyes scanning every shadow. The attackers had retreated, but they would not stay gone for long. Clay knew this, and Lila's tense, weary glance told him she did too. "We're far from safe," he said, voice low, carrying over the wind. "But we're not broken yet." The night sky stretched wide above them, indifferent, vast, and full of promise and peril. Clay adjusted his grip on the reins, feeling the weight of every step behind them, and the shadow of every step still ahead, because some enemies never forget. Some debts can't be escaped. And out here, in the endless plains, the next confrontation is coming. Closer, faster, and deadlier than they've ever faced. Keep your hands steady. The storm is about to break. The first light of dawn burned pale over the horizon, casting long shadows across the plains. Clay urged the sorrel forward, dust rising like sparks. Lila rode close, silent, listening. Every bird call, every rustle, every distant thump told them one thing. They weren't alone. "They're coming," she said quietly, eyes sharp. Clay's jaw tightened. "Then we strike first." Ahead, the ridge opened into a narrow pass, perfect for an ambush. Clay slowed just enough to slip into the jagged rocks. Through dust and shadow, 5 men appeared, weapons ready, faces cold. One was taller, leaning against a boulder, a ghost from Lila's past. He knows every path we've taken," Lila whispered. Clay brushed her hand. "Then we take the path he won't expect." The sorrel surged, dust swallowing them. Bullets tore through the air, sparks dancing off stone. Lila ducked, instincts honed with every step. Clay admired her. No longer the frightened girl from the barn, now alive, precise, unstoppable. They twisted through the canyon, using terrain as armor. Clay's rifle cracked. A man fell. Lila maneuvered expertly, dodging a trap. By midday, the plains bore the scars of battle. Dust, hoofprints, spent shells, adrenaline thick in the air. But Clay knew it wasn't enough. The man from her past would return, deadlier than before. Near a dry creek, the sorrel rested. Lila slid down, hands trembling but eyes fierce. "We can't run forever. He won't stop." Clay nodded. "Then we make him stop, one way or another." The plain stretched infinite, unyielding, whispering of all who had walked and died there. The horizon promised neither mercy nor rest, because the past doesn't stay buried, and when it rises, it doesn't ask for mercy. Keep your eyes sharp, your heart steady. The next clash will decide everything. The sun burned hot, turning the plains into a furnace. Clay's throat was dry, muscles tight, eyes sharp. Every ridge, every rock, every whisper could hide the enemy. Lila rode just behind him, silent, coiled like a spring, dust streaking her face, determination in her eyes. "They've learned our paths," Lila said. "They're anticipating every turn." Clay shot her a glance. "Then we take what they don't expect." Ahead, the land narrowed into a rocky pass, perfect for a trap or a counterstrike. Clay nudged the sorrel forward, sensing every contour. Shadows flitted along canyon walls. 5 men, rifles raised, faces cold, waiting. The tallest rider stepped forward, the man from Lila's past. Cruel confidence radiated from him. He had hunted before. He was ready to strike. Clay kicked the sorrel into motion. Lila pressed close, instincts sharp, heart racing. Gunfire erupted, echoing off stone. Clay ducked, spun, returned fire, weaving through the canyon. Lila guided the horse with precision, dodging a rider trying to flank them. One by one, Clay took down the attackers. Each shot precise, calculated. Lila kept the sorrel steady, anticipating moves he couldn't see. They moved as one, 2 lives bound by survival and trust. Then the man from Lila's past charged, cutting them off. Clay met him head on, horse against horse, gun against gun, dust and sweat blurring edges. Time slowed. Every heartbeat was survival. Lila's hand found Clay's shoulder, steadying him. She had faced worse, chains, darkness, secrets. Now she was ready. Clay fired. The man tumbled, hitting the ground with a dull thud. The remaining riders scattered, leaving only silence and the pounding of hearts across the hot plains. They slowed the sorrel, breathing hard, muscles screaming. They had survived, but the fight had left its mark. They were not running anymore. They were ready to stand, ready for whatever came next, because the plains never forget, and enemies don't stay defeated. The storm isn't over. It's just beginning. Hold tight. The next ride will push them to the edge and beyond. The plains were silent, but the silence was thick with warning. Clay and Lila rode into the valley where the horizon shimmered with heat and dust, muscles tense, every nerve alert. This was where the hunt would end, one way or another. "They know we're coming," Lila whispered, voice tight. Clay said nothing, scanning ridges, gullies, and shadows that could conceal rifles, knives, or death. The weight of every step behind them, the barn, the chase, the nights spent running, pressed on him. Every escape, every close call had led here. Then movement. Figures surged from the rocks. Dozens of men with weapons flashing in the sun. Clay urged the sorrel forward. Lila clung tightly, heart hammering against his back. Gunfire erupted. Dust rose in thick clouds. Horses reared, and the valley became chaos. Clay fired from behind boulders, diving, spinning, every shot deliberate. Lila leaned forward, guiding the horse with instinct, anticipating each threat. They weren't running. They were fighting, moving as one, each aware of the other, each heartbeat a drum of survival. The man from Lila's past appeared, riding straight at them, a cruel sneer cutting across his dirt-streaked face. Clay met him head on, gun leveled. Hooves struck the ground, dust blurring edges, every heartbeat echoing fate. Clay fired. The man faltered and fell, but sent one last volley into the chaos. Lila's hand gripped Clay's, steadying him. and together they pushed through smoke and fire. The attackers scattered, leaving echoes and pounding hearts across the hot plains. Clay and Lila slowed the sorrel, muscles screaming, lungs burning, faces streaked with dust. They had survived, but the plains had left their mark. Night fell, quiet but deceptive, the plains holding memory like a predator. Every shadow could hide a threat. The sorrel picked its way carefully over rocks, hooves tapping a soft rhythm. Lila rode close, tension coiled in her small frame, senses sharpened. "We've survived this far," she whispered, "but I can't outrun him forever." Clay said nothing. Silence carried more weight than words here. Ahead, a narrow ridge loomed, the kind of terrain the man from her past would exploit. Clay slowed the sorrel, dropping into cover behind jagged rocks, nodding to Lila. "Trust instincts, stay alive." Shots cracked suddenly. Clay rolled behind a boulder, heart hammering. Lila ducked low, guiding the horse expertly, dodging sprays of bullets. They moved like shadows, anticipating each other's actions. Clay fired with precision. The attackers faltered, confusion spreading. Lila's hand on his shoulder steadied him. They weren't just surviving, they were striking back. Dust settled, the ridge emptied. For a moment, adrenaline ebbed, muscles trembling. But the plains did not forgive, and enemies never disappeared. Dawn burned pale across the horizon, light spilling over dust and heat, carrying echoes of battle, sweat, and blood. Clay urged the sorrel forward, senses sharp, scanning every movement, every rustle, every shadow. Lila stayed close, coiled like a spring, determination etched into her face. "They're coming," she said quietly. Clay's jaw tightened. "Then we strike first." Ahead, a rocky pass awaited, shadows flickering along canyon walls. 5 men, rifles raised, waiting. The tallest rider, the man from Lila's past, stepped forward, cruel confidence radiating from him. He had hunted before. Now he sought the final strike. Clay kicked the sorrel into motion, muscles coiled, heart racing. Lila pressed close, instincts honed, pulse matching his. Gunfire erupted, echoing against stone. Clay ducked, spun, returned fire. Lila guided the horse through the chaos, dodging a rider attempting to flank them. One by one, Clay picked off attackers, each shot precise. Lila anticipated moves he could not see. They were a single unit, 2 lives bound by trust and survival. The man from Lila's past charged, cutting them off. Clay met him head on. Horse against horse, gun against gun, dust and sweat blurring every edge. Time slowed. Every heartbeat drummed survival. Lila's hand found Clay's shoulder, steadying him. She had faced worse, chains, darkness, secrets. Now she was ready. Clay fired. The man fell with a dull thud, remaining riders scattered, leaving silence and pounding hearts across the plains. They slowed the sorrel, muscles screaming, breath heavy, faces streaked with dust and sweat. They had survived, but the plains had left a permanent mark. They were no longer running. They were ready to stand, ready to confront whatever came next. The plains never forget, and enemies never stay defeated. The storm was far from over. Hold your breath. Keep your eyes sharp. The next ride would push them to the edge, and beyond. The plains were quiet, but Clay knew it was a lie. Every instinct screamed danger. The sorrel moved like liquid shadow beneath him, muscles taut, ears pricked. Lila rode close, hands gripping his shoulders, eyes sharp, heart racing, but ready. "You ready?" Clay asked, voice low. "I'm ready," Lila replied, steady, unwavering. Ahead, in the hollow of the canyon, he saw him, the man who had haunted her past, face cruel, certainty radiating, surrounded by tense, silent riders. The trap was set, but Clay would not be caught. He nudged the sorrel forward. Lila leaned in, guiding the horse with skill born of survival. Together they surged like a storm, breaking across the dry plains. Gunfire erupted, echoing off canyon walls. Clay fired, rolling, ducking behind rocks, precise and deliberate. Lila's small frame moved with uncanny timing, steering the sorrel through chaos. They were no longer prey, they were hunters. The man stepped forward, rifle leveled, confidence radiating. Clay met him, rifle raised, eyes locked. Time slowed, dust in the air, pounding hooves, two lives converging on a knife edge. Clay fired first. The man faltered, stumbled, but still moved. Lila grabbed a fallen rifle, firing with deadly accuracy. Together they pushed him back, controlling the battlefield with relentless force. One by one, his riders broke and fled, leaving only him. Finally, he dropped to his knees, gun slipping from trembling hands. Lila stepped forward, face set, shadows of the past etched across her features. "It ends here," she said. "No fear, only resolve." Clay kept the sorrel between them, alert as the man slumped to the ground. The canyon echoed with silence, broken only by wind and ragged breaths. Lila looked at Clay, a small smile touching her lips. "We made it," she whispered. Clay nodded, letting tension slip just a little. The plains had tested them, broken them, shaped them. But they were still here, alive together. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the dust in fire and gold. For the first time in a long while, the world seemed still, almost gentle, almost, because the plains never forget, and life on them is never simple. But for tonight, they have survived. Tomorrow, the wind may carry new dangers, new debts, new shadows. Keep your eyes open. The ride is never truly over. Subscribe for more tales of survival, suspense, and the untamed plains. Don't miss the next ride.